Okay. Good evening once again. I hope you're able to see my screen. Thank you, Fiona, for inviting me once again to share some knowledge on IT audit. My name is Stephen Mugabe, and I'll just put a brief of a few things that can describe me. I am a certified information systems auditor, certified information security manager. I'm a SEL certified data analyst and certified information technology infrastructure language. I'm currently working with the Personal Data Protection Office as Manager Data Protection Affairs, where I oversee the information technology arm of the office. And part of the work that I do is to carry out compliance audits in the area of information technology, information privacy, and assurance. As indicated by Fiona, many years ago, I was where you are. I did computer science at Makerere and graduated in 2009. From that, I was able to take up a few assignments in the consulting industry. I moved and worked with a research collaboration in health, where I was in charge of systems administration and networking. I also worked with USAID, where I was in charge of IT support and asset management. And I've had a number of consulting assignments in systems audit, information systems assessment, systems design, and project management and quality assurance. Before I moved to the National Information Technology Authority, where I've done work with government in the area systems assessment and quality assurance, before now taking up a role in the data protection and privacy, where I oversee the work under the IT arm of the Personal Data Protection Office. So for purposes of class today, we're going to look at the IT audit process. And I have a few slides that will help us to guide the discussion. But my talk and discussion is going to be more of experience, what is actually out there when you go out and you need to do work. I don't know whether I should start with Fiona's request on how to get where I am. Personally, I look at it as an initiative that you need to take as a person. One, to better yourself. When you graduate with your degree, you're going to graduate many from Makerere. There are those graduating from other universities. Uganda has more than 20 universities, and each of these teach and churn out graduates in computer science, information systems, information technology, engineering, telecommunication, software engineering, and all that. So when you get out and you go into the world, it should be your responsibility as a person to see, how do I better myself? We are many with the degree. What else do I have that is going to be a differentiator between me and the rest of the other graduates? And then the different fields that are out there in the world, you take the initiative to understand and see, where is the computing world going? For example, if I may talk about computing in the earlier years, everyone thought about computing as networking, where you need to pull around cables and everything. But right now, you can have an entire office in the cloud, so you don't need the cabling and all that. So you realize that we are moving away from the hardware and all that into the cloud. I don't want to preempt probably what you may not know or what you are passionate about or what you've heard about, that is cloud computing. But you need to take the initiative to study the trends and see where is IT, where is information technology going in the future. And from the different assignments that I undertook immediately after my university, I quickly noticed that, look, in everything we are doing in information technology, we need to keep secure at all costs. So it gave me interests to learn and study more of the information security. And then eventually I managed to say, okay, the concentration can be on auditing of information security. Now, the two are different, but a bit related. You might be a security person and your specialization is on implementation of the security. Now, I am a security person who has studied and gained knowledge in the security implementations, but also added on an aspect of data analytics and audit to be able to know that, well, you have implemented your security, but are there any gaps? How do we close the gaps? How do we advise management on the likely issues if we do not do ABC? That is the primary role of an auditor. Many people talk about audit and the theme of audit as being policing. They say many people complain that when we come to audit, we report about the bad things, the failures in the implementations, but in actual sense, it is to help you better your implementations, make your environments more secure, so that at the end of the day, information technology as a function in the organization adds value to the organization. I hope I've not taken so much time on that bit of talk and the introduction. Let's quickly go into the key topic for today, which is the IT audit and process. Now, for our discussion today, I know you know what IT audit is and the objectives of IT audit. So I'll quickly run through just to help us, help everyone remind ourselves what IT audit is, why we need to do IT audit, and about the scoping. And then we'll quickly go and dive deep into the IT audit process. If you know what IT audit is and the objectives and the scoping, but how exactly is this elephant called IT audit done? We'll look at the different steps that we go through to do IT audit, and also look at a few templates that we can use to document our work to ensure that while we do the audit, we don't come out with nothing. So if you do anything and don't document, at the end of the day, you will have nothing to show that you've been able to do some work. Okay. Quickly, IT audit or information systems audit is the process of collecting and evaluating evidence of an organization's information systems, practices, and operations. What do we mean by this? an organization, and I'll keep referring to, say, the College of Computing at Makerere. The College of Computing at Makerere has information technology in place to support the operations, to support the work. There is the local area network at the college that is accessible to the lecturers, the teaching staff, the non-teaching staff, as well as the students. Now, when I come in as an IT auditor, I want to collect information about the ICT infrastructure, the ICT systems within the college, and evaluate the evidence that the ICT systems and practices are secure and giving value to the college. Let's take an example. The college is paying, say, $1,000 every month for internet. Now, I need to come and assess, how is the internet usage? Do we have any controls on how the internet is used? Okay, because the internet that is paid for by the College of Computing should be to support the operations of the college. The internet should be used for studying at the college. It should be used to support the staff. It should be used for communication. So now I'll come in and engage the IT team at the college and ask, how is the internet managed? What controls do you have to ensure that the internet is being used for the right purpose, by the right people, and at the right time? I'm sure many of you have been affected. You want to access the internet, but you probably do not have the password to be able to connect. You'll be frustrated because the internet is available and you think you should be able to use it. But then there needs to be control, okay? We do not want you to just access the internet when you're not an intended user. The more users you have on the internet, the more the traffic is going to be going out, and the less efficient in terms of operations. So for you to be able to ensure that the services you have, okay, the services that you have are used for the right purpose, you need to have controls in place that ensure the service is used for the right purpose. Now, we're saying the evaluation obtained determines if information systems are safeguarding assets, maintaining data integrity, operating effectively and efficiently to achieve the organization's goals and objectives. Like I said, I'll keep referring to the college, okay? If the college is having a system, say, for example, an academic record system, we want to see in our IT audit, is the academic records management system secure, or anyone can access the system and change the students' results? If I needed to access the academic records management system, is it available whenever I need it? Okay, because we don't want to invest into IT. We don't want to invest into systems that are not going to add value to the organization. Remember, we look at IT as a business enabler. So as you're trying to justify management to spend on the IT infrastructure, what is the value that it adds to the organization? Imagine you have a system, but it takes longer to retrieve results than when we were running a paper-based records management system. So we want to see if the implementation of ICT is adding value to the organization, maintaining data integrity and operations are more efficient. So once you collect that evidence, you're able to report, and in your report, you should be able to advise management on where to improve and where to keep secure. If you realize everyone that comes into the organization has free access to the internet, the systems are not secure, or the system does not add value, you advise management, but that should be backed up by evidence gathered during your audit, as well as detailed explanation on your findings. So that is about information systems audit. The objective is to determine if the systems are safeguarding assets, maintaining integrity, and helping the organization to operate effectively and efficiently. For anyone that is making a decision to invest in systems, they will not make the decisions if the system or any IT infrastructure is not adding value. That's why it is important, and they will hire you as an auditor to come, do the assessment, and be able to advise. Objectives of IT audits. Why do we do IT audits? I've talked about ascertaining that the level of ICT compliance with applicable laws. All operations are guided by laws and regulations. In my introduction, I told you I work with the Personal Data Protection Office. Now, the Data Protection Office comes into play through a law called the Data Protection and Privacy Act. Now, that law puts clear requirements on maintaining the security and integrity of personal data. Now, if you're implementing any systems, you need to consider applicable laws, policies, and guidelines. There are a number of laws that govern IT in the country. Among them is the Data Protection Law, the Computer Misuse Act, the Access to Information Act. So we come in as auditors to see, are you abiding and following, complying with the requirements of the laws? I'll give an example of Computer Misuse Act. Very many people do not know the law. So you, as an IT person, when you're implementing IT in your organization, it is incumbent upon you to ensure that you have knowledge of these laws and also industry standards to make sure that you do not violate any of the laws, and neither do employees who are connected to your infrastructure violate any laws. When it comes to standards, you cannot have an implementation that works standalone, okay? If it's networking, for example, there are international standards that guide computer networking. So as you're designing your network, you need to know that your network is going to be in your organization, but communicates to the internet. The internet has standards. So it's important that you follow and do your implementation according to standards. Now, as an auditor, I'll come in to assess and see how do you comply with standards, okay? There are standards in cabling, there are standards in information security, we assess and we are able to advise on compliance with standards. Two is evaluating the reliability of data from systems. This is very, very critical. And in many organizations, people still do not believe in online operations. An example is what we are doing now. We are having a lecture. I'm seated at the office on Lugogo Bypass. I do not know where most of you are. Okay. Now we want to be able to evaluate the reliability of delivery of online lectures. Okay. If we are running an academic records management system, how reliable is it? Are we able to access the information when we want it? If we are running an accounting system, if I'm doing a payroll calculation at the end of the month, do I get the right figures? Okay. Now, it is the role of information systems audit to ensure that systems are evaluated to confirm that they are reliable and secure. We all know that when Fiona created the link for today's lecture, she had an access code so that whoever does not have that access code is not able to attend this class because they are not part of the class. Now, that is an element of reliability, an element of security. We want to try and make sure that the systems and resources that we have are used for the right purposes and by the right people. Purpose. Three, why we do IS audit is to evaluate the adequacy of IT systems in meeting and supporting the organization mandate. I think I've emphasized that if it is not going to add value, then we do not have to spend money on it. As when you get out there and start working, you realize that for every IT implementation, for everything, it requires money. You need to put a firewall, it requires money. Even the person who is going to manage the firewall itself is going to be paid. So before you justify that expenditure, does the implementation or the addition support the organization mandate? If we do not need the system, then we should not have it. Many times you will go into organizations, you're doing your audit and realize a system was implemented 3 years ago and it has not been used ever since. Your recommendation will be as good as telling people you do not actually need this system. Checking the efficiency of the resources and their usage, again, related to the systems supporting the mandate. So you as an IT auditor, you're supposed to come in and assess the security, reliability, and value of the IT infrastructure in the organization. Once you do that, you have your evidence, you'll be able to advise management, and management should be able to take the right decision to improve on the infrastructure based on your reporting that you have provided. Now, like I said earlier on in the previous slide, we need to ascertain that the level of ICT compliance is with the applicable laws, policies, standards, and guidelines. I know you probably will have a detailed class on standards and guidelines, but there are a few standards here that guide information systems auditing. Why do we need standards? Just to make sure we do not do things haphazardly. So that when I come and do an audit, someone is going to trust the results. They trust the results because I have followed a certain way of doing things. And there are different organizations that have set standards. So when you're out there going to do an audit, you need to have a standard that you're following so that your results are consistent and reliable out in the market. We don't want an IT auditor who makes audit recommendations that cannot be relied on and cannot be supported by any other person. You make a recommendation, someone is supposed to do the implementation of the recommendation. So there's need to have a standard that you follow so that when someone is trying to implement your recommendations, they are not just abstract. I will leave this section for probably another day where detailed coverage of the standards can be done to help you appreciate more and dig deep into using standards for auditing. Now, scope of IT audit. Through the previous slides, you realize I've talked about the network, I've talked about the systems, I've talked about quite a number of things. And when you're doing an audit, you may not be able to do everything to assess the reliability and security of everything that there is in IT. But you can decide that for this particular audit, I am going to do item 1, I'm going to do item 2, I'm going to do item 3. Now that is what we call scoping. When you're doing your audit, you need to have a scope of coverage, okay? You can't say, I'm going to do everything. Yes, it is possible to do everything, but how much time do you have to do this? How much time do you need to report back to management? Now, there are different areas that we usually focus on when we are doing IT audit. Area number 1 is the general controls. Okay. Now, general controls, like the word says, they are general. And because they are general, they apply to all the other aspects of information technology. I look at the IT general control as the guiding principles, as the guardrail of information technology. And when you come in to assess the general controls, you should be able to give a picture of the information security posture in the organization. The IT general controls include policies, procedures, governance, and controls that are surrounding the general IT environment. I'll give an example of an IT general control. And this is around governance. One, you know that in an organization, you have an IT department. The IT department is probably headed by an IT manager or an IT director, depending on how big the particular organization is, okay? From the IT manager, there is an assistant. From the assistant, there is a network person, there is a software engineer, up to the IT support team. Now that is governance, okay? You're going to come and ask yourself, ask the organization that you're auditing if there is a governance structure in place. Many times they will tell you we have one IT person. Now that IT person is the IT manager, is the network person, is the database administrator, is the security analyst, everything, okay? Now, in terms of governance, there is an issue. Who does this person report to? Who checks and assesses their performance? Now, when you come in, you should be able to review and give a management recommendation. Again, your recommendation should not be textbook based. That because when we were attending a lecture, they told us there needs to be governance structure, you need to have an IT manager. So you go to an organization with 10 people, you want them to have an IT manager, you want them to have an IT director and 7 other IT staff. You need to do the assessment based on the size of the organization, based on the objectives of the organization, as well as the capacity to accommodate some position. If the system does not, if the office organization does not do system development, why should they have a software engineer? Okay. If the organization has 5 people, why would they need an IT department of 7? Okay. If an organization has 100 staff, how is one person, one IT person, going to support the 100 staff? Okay. You need to do your audits, keeping in mind the business goals, the business objectives, as well as the size of the organization. There, it helps you to be able to give recommendations that add value to the organization and not recommendations that cannot be implemented within the organization. Another area that we usually scope is around the network and system administration. Okay. Now, every organization has a network of sorts. It could be wireless, it could be cable, but as long as the organization is using ICT for operations, there is a network. The networks help with the communication and sharing of information. Sometimes we do not realize the value of the network because we do not dig deep to understand what it is. But when you are at the faculty, for example, and there's no internet or the connections are down, you realize things are not moving. Everyone is walking away, trying to find where the network is. When you're in an office and you cannot send an email to say your boss, you cannot share a file. Now, that is when you begin to appreciate the value of the network. When the network is on and everything is okay, it doesn't seem to be as valuable as when it goes off. You get to appreciate more when it's down and you can really see the impact on the operations. So when your scope is to audit the network and how it is administered, your objectives are going to be defined by that particular focus. Okay. How is the network managed? What policies guide the implementation? Who can access the network? At what time do you access the network? What are you able to do on the network? Okay. At the end of the day, we want to make sure the resources the organization pays for are used for the right purpose at the right time when they need to be used. So in your review as an IT auditor, you need to define your objectives in that line to make sure that at the end of the day, you're adding value to the organization. We don't want you to come, do an audit, And you don't want you to come and do an audit, walk away, and you have not added value. Remember, the IT audit exercise is paid for, okay? So no one wants to pay you. You come, take time, walk around, ask for documents, review and all that, and then you walk away without any value. That's why it is important that you scrutinize all the operations to see where is management making value out of this particular service. Another scope area that IT audit covers is business continuity. Now, when you decide to do your business online, it means your services should be as readily available as when they are not online. Okay. Whereas at Makere, I don't know if the Blackboard is still in use. We used to have the Blackboard, which was an online e-learning system. Okay, would have lectures not posted on the Blackboard. So you would log in, access the notes, log in, download, do anything on the Blackboard for everything that you needed. Okay. Now, the moment you needed to access the Blackboard and it was down, it would be disaster, because all your notes are on the Blackboard. You have an exam the next day, or you need to submit coursework, Blackboard is down. Okay. Now, it means there is no business going on. Now, you need to come and ask within this organization, if something happened, how is business going to continue? Do you have a business continuity plan? What does the business continuity plan cover? Okay. Now, with that understanding, you're able to advise management on the adequacy of the business continuity plan. If the adequacy cannot be tested, it cannot be confirmed, you advise management on how to improve on the business continuity plan. Because at the end of the day, if we have an academic records management system and the server fails one time, what do? We need to have a secondary server that we can switch to and operations continue. If we do not have such in place, it means business is going to fail, and once businesses fail, we lose revenue, we lose reputation, and as an organization, you're affected in one way or the other. The other scope of area that we look at are the application software reviews. Okay. Now, you have general controls, you have a network, you have a business continuity. Now you go into the application themselves. I will talk about the academic records management system. We know the academic records management system has everything about you the moment you step into the university until you graduate. And even when you graduate, you can come back 10 years later and your records should be within that system. Now, what is your concern as an auditor when you're doing an application review? You want to know who accesses this system. What do they access it for? What times do they access the system? What do they do once they have access? What level of access do they have? Okay. An example, as a student, when you access the academic records management system, you should be able to see your results and go. If you want, you can print. You shouldn't be authorized to edit. Otherwise, we shall have 100% first class. Okay. If you manage to edit, is there a way of knowing what was done on that particular system? So for each of these scope areas, we have different actions that we do when doing systems audit to make sure that we thoroughly test the security, reliability, and value of the application to the organization. And for everything that you find, it is your requirement as an auditor to document and then be able to generate a report that you present to management. Without the documentation, your results cannot be relied on, and wherever possible, attach the evidence. Another scope area, we talk about the physical environment. One of the number one requirements for a secure IT environment is restricted access. I don't know if any of you have ever had access to the DICT's server room or know where the DICT server room is. It is restricted access. So we need to make sure they are secure as much as possible. So you need to assess and see how secure is the physical environment and advise management on that. So when you're out to do an audit, you can scope to do everything I've talked about, or you can focus and say we're going to do general controls and application controls for this period. Then we can come back next period and do network and system administration. Or it could be on a specific request, whereby your request is to audit general controls and provide feedback to management based on the terms of engagement. Now, we have understood that when you're doing audits, you need to scope and say, I'm going to focus on this. Now we're going deep into understanding the process of IT auditing. Now, IT auditing, just like any other work that we do, is basically a three-stage process. But depending on which book you read, which frameworks you follow, these 3 steps can be broken down into further smaller steps to help you understand better. But basically, for you to be able to do an audit, you need to plan. After planning, you need to do the field work and documentation, and then report. Why is it important to plan? You can't just wake up today, tomorrow you're in my office, you say you want to do an IT audit. I'll ask you, okay, what do you want to audit? What do you want to cover? How are you going to do the audit? Okay? If you do not plan, and I asked you those questions, you're going to turn and walk away. However, if you sit down, document, and say, okay, I'm going to the Data Protection Office for an IT audit. I want to focus on IT general controls, and I'll do the IT general controls audit through steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? When you come in, I'll know that you really are prepared to do the audit, and then point you to where you need to get the information, get the work done. And then the field work is now the gathering of the particular information. if you want to review the processes, if you want to review the policies, we provide you the information that you need. If you need to do any test, do the test and document. If you don't document, there will be nothing for you to present at the last stage, which is reporting. And then if you do everything, collect the information, write everything, and then you don't report, it will be no work done. So for IT audit, you need to plan, do the field work, document everything that you find, and present a report. Okay, so core to the process are those 3 or 4 things: the field work, the planning, field work, documentation, reporting. You realize when you're planning, you need to document your plan so that you can be able to follow it closely from one step to the other. When you do the field work, you're collecting information, you're gathering evidence, you're documenting, and then presentation of the report is a document itself. So those 3 basic steps, when followed with clear guidelines and processes, you're able to execute an IT audit and add value to the organization. I'll keep emphasizing the value addition, okay? Because IT departments within organizations strive to do their best. When you come in as an auditor, you need to show that, you know what, when I came in, there was gap 1, 2, 3, and this is how you need to close the particular gaps to add value to the operations and the organization as well. If you do not report in a way that adds value, you probably will not have another engagement. Management will feel the engagement of you as an auditor was not any useful. Now, again, like I said, depending on the different books that you read, you'll find now the audit process is broken down into 7 steps, okay? Now, step 1 here is letter of understanding, entry meeting. Now, 1 and 2 are part of planning, okay? Then once you finish 1 and 2, audit queries and feedback, exit meeting, management exit meeting. Now that is the field work, okay? You ask me, I provide you feedback. This is how we operate. This is how we manage our network. These are the securities we have. This is what is comprised of our disaster recovery plan, and this is how we test it. Now, those audit queries and feedback plus the exit meeting is where you're gathering information. Now, the management letter, draft audit report, and final audit report is where we are reporting on our findings from the audit. As you can see, this illustration of 7 stages of the IT audit process still fits into the 3 stages of plan, fieldwork, and reporting. So once you master the process that you need to plan, go do the work and report, then the audit process is on your fingertips. And now the next is to see, what am I doing detailed, step by step under planning? What am I doing in detail, step by step under field work? And what am I doing? How am I reporting? Okay. Again, Another audit process could be inquiry, confirmation, inspection of documents, inspection of tangible assets, observation, recalculation, and you can see all these are methods to help you be able to gather information in your field work exercise. We'll slightly dig deep into this in a few slides to come. Again, IT audit from another perspective, you'll have information gathering, review prior audit issues, do a risk assessment, do a plan, execute the audit, and do the evaluation. Again, all these feed into the three major steps of plan, execute, and report. Now, we're going to break down this IT audit process into the three steps, like I said, planning, which in this case is covered under 1 and 2, performing the audit, and then reporting. Okay, you realize that at the end of the day, you need to have all these steps for a complete audit. We're going to look at the detailed activities that we can do within each of these steps and how to perform it. Now, pre-planning. You're trying to create tentative plans for the audit, and the key objective of the phase is to understand the infrastructure and basic to allocate the right resources. I want to audit an example. I want to audit the College of Computing. That is my objective. I need to be able to understand what is available at the College of Computing in terms of ICT infrastructure. Okay. Do they have an ICT network? Yes. What is comprised of the ICT network? Do they have any systems? Yes, they have any systems. What do the systems do? Now, I'm trying to get an understanding of what is available that I'm going to audit. And as an auditor, you're expected to carry out a high-level review of the infrastructure, application, hardware systems used of the entity. Okay, you can see I'm telling you I want to audit the ICT and the College of Computing. I need to understand, do they have a network in place? Yes. What kind of network? Is it wired? Is it wireless? Is it cable? Do they have any systems? Yes, they have an academic records management system. They have an accounting system. They have a time and attendance system. Okay, now I have a few things to start from. Okay, then what are the risks associated with the infrastructure that I've gathered? Okay, I know an academic records management system has a risk of failure. It has a risk of unauthorized access. It has the risk of breakdown. So I document that and know, okay, this is where I am going. Okay, this is the magnitude of the problem I'm likely to face. Okay, you try to think ahead and say, okay, I'm going to audit this kind of infrastructure and this kind of infrastructure and have risks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you prepare yourself to understand how deep you're going to cover the audit, what things you need to do to ensure that your audit is thorough and adds value to the organization. Now, this is you pre-planning your activities. Then, next stage is I'm saying as you prepare for the audit in your pre-planning, you review any prior audits, you look for new areas, you try to understand the personnel and see if your focus is kept on point. Now, once you're done with your pre-planning activities, you now go on to the planning stage. Now, the difference between the pre-planning and the planning is at the planning stage, you're involving the person who you're going to audit, okay? But you don't want to go into my office, you're coming to audit me when you do not have any slight idea of what you want to be able to do. That's why it is important. And that's why I break off the pre-planning so that it comes out distinct to get you prepared, okay? You don't want to come to my office, you're going to do an audit and you have no idea on anything that you want to do and how you want to do it, okay? One, the moment you go to initiate an audit like that, the auditee is going to lose confidence and they will not trust the results at whatever level you bring them out. Now, you do a bit of your research, do your pre-planning, and then come into the planning meeting, okay? Now, during the planning meeting, you get a detailed document that spells the purpose for the audit and the responsibility of management, the organization you're going to audit, to support you to carry out the audit. When you go out to audit, you meet a number of challenges. Someone thinks their infrastructure is well protected, everything is in place, and you're here trying to check and look for their faults, okay? So oftentimes people become uncooperative and all that. That's why it is important that management, top management, the CEO, the executive director has to give a go-ahead. And in that planning meeting, tells people to be cooperative so that you're able to get as much information and valuable information as possible. Now, the planning stage helps you to further understand the auditee, okay? Remember, I said in my simple research under pre-planning, I know there's a network in this organization, they have applications X, Y, Z. But then when I come in during the planning process, where the auditee is involved, I get to understand that what I thought was 2 systems, they actually have 4 systems. They have a system that does the recording, they have the system that does the entry, they have the system that does the calculation. But at the end, me, I see only one interface of the system. So you get to gain a deeper understanding of the auditee and understand the business processes. You now realize that before we get the results uploaded into the system, you actually have one person who does the entry from the examination sheets. Another person does the review and confirmation. And then a third person does the approval. Now you're digging deep into the processes to be able to understand how things are done within the organization. And then you understand better the ICT infrastructure. I come to your organization, I come to the College of Computing, I see the students and staff connecting to the internet. But now, in this audit planning meeting, I'll get to understand the infrastructure better. I'll be told we have 2 internet service providers. The termination of each provider is at this point. Each of the provider terminates into a firewall. We have 2 switches, we have 2 routers, we have 8 access points. The access points are configured to send traffic in such a way. The firewall is configured to restrict traffic and access. So now you're getting to understand better and make sense of the environment to be able to develop your plan better and your test scenarios better. And then again, depending on the scope of your audit, you get to understand the business applications in place. I've talked about the academic systems, I've talked about the accounting systems. Then you know, okay, this is the infrastructure, these are the systems in place. So how do they work together to support the operations? And then at that point, you're able to identify and document key areas of interest. Is your area of interest on internet? No. Is your area of interest on the application? Yes. So the moment you pick your area of interest, you're able to focus your assessment and audit on those areas of interest to be able to get the right results. And then you do a preliminary risk assessment and develop audit procedures for consideration. The last stage is documentation. It is the last, but it cuts across. As you're understanding the auditee, you're documenting. As you're obtaining an understanding of the business processes, you're documenting. So everything is done here should be documented, because at the end of the day, you're going to need to refer to all the information that you gather at this point for the next stages until you develop and submit the final report. So in a way, I've talked about this particular slide, understanding the business, you identify the strategies, recognize the risks, understand the IT as support model, you analyze the business functions, understand the role of IT. So basically, this is done within your planning. You need to make sure you understand the business as much as possible. You need to understand the risks. And then at the end of the day, you need to have an audit plan that clearly defines what you're going to do, your focus areas, and how you're going to carry out the audit. You have that plan, discuss it with the auditee so that they are able to provide you all the necessary information, all the personnel that you need to work with. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful with the audit. So it is important that once you're done with your plan, discuss it with the auditee and make sure you agree so that resources can be allocated to you, personnel to support you within the audit are also availed, and you agree on the timeline, because you don't want to be doing an audit that does not end. So your plan should make sure it covers all those basics, and the operations team or the IT team of the auditee is able to support you on that. Now, one of the things that usually is of key interest from the audit planning process is the risk assessment. So I've pulled out an illustration of how you do the risk assessment. The risk assessment plays a very big role in the performance of the audit. Why does it play a big role in the performance of the audit? As you're planning, you understand my infrastructure. You need to know what threats does my infrastructure have, okay? I have an academic records management system. What are the risks that are there when you have such a system, okay? I have internet that cuts across 3 office blocks or 3 campuses. What are the risks that are associated with this particular implementation? Now, the moment you understand the business processes, the moment you understand the setup of the IT environment, you're now able to assess and know the likely challenges that can be in an organization. You come into an organization and have a few interviews, review any documentation. When you come and say, ask for policies governing IT and realize there are no policies, now your focus is going to be more intentional. You know the higher risk is around lack of governance. What is the challenge of being in an environment that is lacking governance? You know, I have a system that is of high interest to everyone within the organization. That's the accounting system or the procurement system, the academic records management system. Everyone wants to pass. So it is of high risk to have that particular system not secure. That means you're going to assess the systems in place, assess the infrastructure in place. Once you do that assessment, you define the risks, and then you can be able to make the right recommendation. So risk assessment in planning is very, very important. You identify the businesses and processes and their risk. Okay, what is the process? What is the risk of having online classes? Risk number 1, unauthorized attendees. Risk number 2, some people just log in and go to sleep. Risk number 3, the network can go off for anyone because they are in different locations. Some people are in places that are noisy. Now you realize we have profiled the risks of delivering online classes. What mitigation measures can we have? Okay. When we encourage everyone to go in a quiet place, we encourage online participation, we encourage people to have backup power, we encourage people to have backup internet connections. And then once you do that risk assessment, you do the recommendations, and then management is now going to make a decision and say, you know what, since we can't control ABCD, we are not going to implement the online classes. But that comes after understanding the business processes. So it's important that when you go out there and you're taking a path of information systems audit, you're able to analyze risks associated to business processes and make the right recommendations. Now, once we are done with our planning, it's time now to go deep into the audit performance. And the audit performance can be on any of the scoped audit areas, and we'll look at how you can be able to test general controls, application controls, so that you're able to now relate on what you can actually do in the field. Okay, we don't want you to just say IT controls testing, general controls testing. What do we mean by general controls? How do you test the IT general controls? So the IT, the performance is now the actual gathering of information that is on ground. And in that, from that information gathered is where you're able to document your findings, and the findings guide the recommendations. IT general controls, I'll skip this and take you to where a documented real application of IT general controls. And then the reporting, I've been emphasizing this. After the audit execution, you need to summarize the results of your audit, draw conclusions on all tests performed and the results for each, make analysis and recommendations. And then it is important that you effectively communicate the results, and it should be to the right person. Sometimes if you communicate to the wrong people, the information is not going to be of value. Now, I will not pick questions at this point. Allow me go through the test of general controls when you go out into the field to do audit.
I ask that they put questions in the chat so that once you're done, you can quickly go through them.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Now, from the earlier presentation, at this point, we said one of the scope areas is IT general control. Now, I need us to understand what IT general controls are and what you're able to test of IT general controls. Now, in terms of IT general controls, we have an aspect of governance. I talked about governance. Governance is to do with IT policies, is to do with leadership and all that. When you walk into an organization and you want to test the general controls or the governance within the organization, one of the things you need to do is determine if there exists any IT policies, IT strategy to guide IT operation. Now, you can document this in your own way. Personally, I prefer to have my documentation, the inquiry alongside the observation. I'll say, one, determine if there are any IT policies, okay? And say, in my findings, there is no strategy in place, okay? But it is to be developed in the next year as per the IT plan. Okay. Now there's no strategy, but they plan to develop the strategy. Now that is a finding. At the end of the day, this is more like my working paper. In the end, I need to do a report that says I found this as a risk, and this is how it is being handled, okay? But now, are there any policies in place? There are no there are no policies in place. That means the IT person does whatever they do based on their knowledge or experience in the field. They are not guided by any policy. No, any operation, there should be a policy that tells you this is how we do things. You don't just do things the way you want. Imagine if anyone wanted and they come and walk into your class, even the third years, the first years, just walk into the class and attend. There is a way we do things. If you need to access internet, you have to be granted the access. If you need to access a system, you have to be granted access through approvals. So you need to have these policies in place to guide the operations. Otherwise, the implementation is going to be risky. Or assuming I'm the IT person, there are no policies, and next day I get another job and go. There is no continuity. However, if there are policies, any other person that comes and takes my place is able to follow and know this is how things are done. Determine whether the board of directors has reviewed and approved the policies. Now you realize I've said there are no policies. Okay. When you're doing your audit, you need to document and be able to ask questions based on understanding and the feedbacks you get. If you find that there are no policies in place, this particular question now becomes irrelevant. We can't have policies approved by the board if there are no any policies. So you would skip now and understand and go to the next question. Remember, you developed these questions during the planning process. You did not know what is actually on ground, okay? But these are requirements when it comes to general controls. Examine how IT management has defined standards and adopted methodologies. Remember, we don't have a policy, we don't have a strategy. Again, this is not going to be in place. Now you quickly go to the next, okay? Considering whether IT and organizational policies and procedures address structured planning, okay? Remember, we say IT should be supporting the business objectives, okay? Now this is aligning strategy which is being developed to the business strategy of the organization. Is there risk assessments or anything you're able to follow in and ask? So you need to document. Again, these IT general controls are standard everywhere, and you need to follow each of them to be able to know how things are done. Okay. How appropriate is the audited body's IT strategic plan? Okay. Now here you're saying you want to understand how appropriate the plan is. But previously, you already noted that there is no plan. Okay. It hasn't been documented. So it can't be approved or anything. At this point, there is no IT strategy. However, if the strategy is there, you need to go deep and understand, has it been approved? Okay. Here you say the strategy is in draft form and not will be approved at next board meeting. Okay. Now you realize at least there are steps to strategic planning of IT, and then you should be able to follow that. Then you dig deep into the strategy. What does it cover? What is it missing? Of course, there are expectations that are things we expect to be in a strategy of IT. Again, as an IT auditor, you need to have that basic knowledge so that you're able to assess someone's implementations and operations based on standard procedures. I have a document here that I'll share so that you can look at it and understand what are the things you can look out for example, when you're doing an audit of general controls, okay? And then you're able to advise based on the findings that you get. Okay, I'll share this. It is basically to guide you. And when you to use such a document, you don't have to say, I'm going to ask each and everything in this question. Based on previous answers, some questions become invalid. Based on the infrastructure, some questions do not apply. I'll go on to another, which is the application control. Now, applications are simply the systems that we use to run and support operations within the organization. I will keep referring to an application like the academic records management system. Now, you need to understand how these systems operate. One of the things you want to know is the methods of data entry and conversion, okay? We have a way, a well-documented way that tells us how data entry is done. I had earlier on hinted on a procedure like you have data entrant, you have a reviewer, and you have an approver. That is something we need to know about a system. Or is the person who enters the system, data into the system, the final? If that is the case, what is the issue? Okay, you're going to document it here and say there are no documented procedures for use of the application. Okay, now what is the problem with that? Okay, now the other observation is data entries are not reviewed and approved. Okay, so now you realize that data entries are not reviewed and or approved. Yeah? It makes it a big risk that when I enter the information, it is final. If it's a mistake, it's a mistake. Okay, then you go. This is here we're saying, does one individual perform more than one function in data input, processing, or distribution? Now, this is based on the understanding of the functionality of the system. If I am entering the results and I'm the one approving the results to be final, then what happens if I make a mistake at the start? You need to test the controls in place, okay? I have again documented a number of things that you need to look out when you go out and you're auditing a particular system. You want to understand how secure is it, who has access, okay? In case someone tries to access the system wrongly, what happens? Is the system secure? Is it running on an operating system that is updated? Is it running on an operating system that is covered with antivirus and the like? So just to sum it up a bit, when you are going to do an IS audit, one, you need to prepare, plan so well, review your plan, and ensure it is approved by the audit entity. Once it is approved, you go into the execution, document as much as possible. And most importantly, you need to have the knowledge of what you're auditing. You cannot audit IT if you do not understand IT yourself. You need to know, if I'm going to audit a network, what are the basics of a good or well-designed, well-implemented network? So you start from an informed point of view to be able to assess someone else's implementation. Yeah, I'll share this template to again guide on a few things that you should be able to do out there. Again, this is not all that you can do, and this is not what you need to do all the time. What you need to do all the time is based on your understanding of the entity, your understanding of the processes, and the objectives of your audit. I beg to stop at this point for now, and then I can look through the questions and see what questions I need to attend to.
Thank you, Steve. I don't see any questions in the chat, so I don't know if people just wanted to ask directly. So probably
I hope they've not been confused.
Sure not. Okay, guys, you have an opportunity to ask any questions, anything that has not been clear, please ask. Yeah, pretty much this is the topic that pretty much anchors the course unit. So you need to be able to understand this process so that you are able to even apply yourself to concepts of audit. So this has to be very clear. So in case something is unclear, you need clarity, please ask. Or any other questions you have for Mr. Mugabe. Take one, take two, anything? I don't know what to make of silence. I want to assume everything has been clear. Or are people in Easter mood? Maybe I'll ask Mr. Mugabe if he can. Okay, I see things in the chat. But Steve, hopefully you can think of, are you able to, I want to involve guest lecturers in setting exam questions on topics they have taught. Would you be able to kindly set an exam question on the IT audit process? Is that possible?
Yeah, sure, it's possible. I can share one or two for your selection. Where do auditors took their reports after documentation? Auditors report to management because they are supposed to advise management on improvement and oversight. So auditors, even when you go into organization structures, they report to the highest level within the organization, which is usually the executive director or the MD, and some auditors report direct to the board. So as an auditor, your report goes to management. I don't see any other question.
I'm only seeing that things were clear, everything is okay. Okay. I hope we don't have to wait until the exam to ascertain that everything was clear and understood. Okay, Steve, do you have anything to say? Looks like there's nothing more from students. Maybe my question would be, what are some of the challenges you've experienced in your job? Okay, someone is asking about components of the IT audit report. Maybe you could also help tackle, some of the challenges that you experience as an IT auditor, challenges that might be associated with the nature of job. The fact that some people, we know that people not exactly evade taxes or avoid taxes. They do all manner of things through systems. So what are some of the things, challenges of the nature of job? But then also, as you know, the environment that you're auditing is very dynamic. Things change, and there's a pressure to keep learning even the new things, the new system environments. What are some of the challenges that comes with? Okay, I'll shut up now.
Okay, thank you. One of the biggest challenges that comes with IT audit is the perception within which the people look at you as an auditor. One, they feel you're going to police them about, you're going to see the things they are not doing well. So oftentimes they are uncooperative, and at the end of the day, you need to get the work done because you're on an engagement by management, and the objective is to add value. So it is important as you're executing your audit to make sure it clearly comes out that your engagement is not to fault someone, but to make them or make the organization perform better. So the biggest challenge is a lack of cooperation, where people will not give you the right information, where people will try to hide a few things. You are someone, how do you do this? They tell you the right thing, yet in actual sense, the implementations are different. All those sorts of things usually happen. I'll quickly, just in a few minutes, show what a typical IT audit report would look like, and then I will also share this that you can share with the students. Now, this is a sample audit report that looks at essential practices for information technology. And then in terms of contents, you want to have an introduction. The introduction talks about what the audit is about, why, and basically the objectives of the particular audit. And it's more like an executive summary. When someone reads this particular introduction, they should know the audit scope you did, what you covered, how you covered it, and the procedures that you used. And then the risk assessment that you did, how you did the risk assessment, and why you did that particular assessment. It would also have an audit plan and the resources that you use. Again, the audit plan should cover the scope and the methods that you're going to use to do the audit. And then you have to document the findings, and then finally, the causes of the weaknesses, the conclusions, and recommendations. So in your reporting, as you can see, you need to have a scope of findings, weaknesses, conclusions, and most important, recommendations for management to take up, because management is interested in knowing, okay, fine, you have found I have a weak password policy. What do you recommend? How should we improve? You found that our operations are not secure. What do you recommend? So we'll have this shared as well. It can guide on what can be done during the reporting process. Let's see some comments. I never got the difference between compliance testing and substantive testing. Okay. Now, compliance testing is the first test you do in your audit. When I come and review your policies say everyone should be granted access upon signing, upon a presentation of an approved access request form. Okay, now that is what the policy says. I'll come and test and say, how do you implement this? Now that is substantive testing. Okay, you test to confirm that the operations in the organization are as done or are as stated in the policies. Again, another illustration of compliance testing and substantive testing is if we have a system that does an accounting system that we use to do payroll, you're going to come in and say, okay, how do you do payroll calculations? Someone is going to demonstrate. Now, you don't stop at that point. You go ahead and see the payroll results. Okay, they will tell you a formula is embedded in to calculate the pay as you earn until someone's final salary is good, and then you go into test. Look at the final payroll. Now, looking at the final payroll, confirm that the figures are calculated as expected. That is substantive testing. Going beyond the initial test is what we call substantive testing. Who audits IT auditors, or are they the final people to forward reports to management? Now, as an IT auditor, you forward your report to final management, but then there is what we call external auditors. Depending on how comfortable management is, they may request for an external auditor who can come in to give another independent view of the audit. So the process does not have a cutoff, but it depends on how operations are going and the comfortability on by management. What happens if an IT audit is not successful? This seems not a bit clear. Okay. To give reasons in case you're not successful or you're not able to complete your audit assignment, you give reasons, and then management should be able to make a decision on what steps to take next. Is audit a full-time job or partial? Audit can be a full-time job, it can be a part-time job, based on the organization. Some organizations, an example I'll give as banks, the regulator, Bank of Uganda requires every bank to have a resident IT auditor to oversee and guide on operation of the IT department. And then some organizations can hire you on a consultancy basis to come do the IT audit of their infrastructure, advise them, and walk away. So it can be a full-time, it can be part-time, it can also be consultancy based. Now, with the changing, what challenges do auditors face in the environment of changing technologies? I think it's a challenge, as well as I don't want to call it a challenge, but depending on how you want to flip the coin, it's an opportunity as well. It's a challenge because you need to keep your knowledge up with the changing technologies. An example is when I started auditing, there was no cloud infrastructure implementation so much in the country. Right now, almost 50% of organizations are running cloud infrastructure. So as an auditor, I need to keep my knowledge and be able to now audit applications that are hosted in the cloud. So you need to take it as a challenge upon yourself to keep yourself educated, to keep yourself in the knowledge with the changing environment. Again, with the changing environment, you find that even the implementations out there, the quality reduces because people are trying to learn a few things without clear guidelines and processes in place. So it's two-way. It could be a challenge and an opportunity at the same time. Okay, do you have anything else?
Okay, no, I don't know. I didn't hear. Did you answer the who audits IT auditors?
Oh, yes, I did provide a guidance that as an IT auditor, you can be audited by an external auditor. And the process could be that way, depending on how management decides to take your audit results. They can request an external auditor to come through. And like any other auditors, your reports can be further audited by senior auditors who can either confirm your findings or otherwise.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. I know it's coming to 7:30, which means it will be almost 2 hours. I don't see any questions, and I want to avoid keeping people here for too long. Could you leave your email address just in case students want to talk to you without having to go through me? Yeah. About maybe a career in IT audit, if that's okay. Okay, email address posted. Please take note of it. And if there are no further questions, I'd like to end here. Okay. Mr. Mugabe has shared 2 email addresses. You can use either. And you can make reference to, he came as a guest lecturer in an IT audit class, so he can remember, so he knows that it's just not a scammer trying to contact him. It's always good to make reference to how you got someone's contact. Okay, thank you so much, Stephen. I look forward to getting the slides, and that's some for maybe audit report to share with students. I need to stop recording now. And if there are no questions, I would like to wish you a happy Easter to everybody. And we will meet next Thursday for a final guest lecture on ITIS ethics and standards. I know Stephen, in his opening remarks, he mentioned standards, that audits are made against a standard. So that's a very important lecture. I hope everybody will be able to